This happened a few months ago. I'm 30 years old and have been a nurse for 5 years. I took the night shift at a busy urban hospital to balance my job and being a single parent. It was usually quiet at night, just the sound of monitors and the occasional chatter between patients. I've never stopped thinking about what happened during those shifts. On my third night, I was walking down a long, dimly lit corridor. It felt like the world outside was frozen in time. Everything was eerily calm. Then, I noticed a medical cart that moved on its own. It slid a few feet, stopping with a soft thud against the wall. I figured it was just a cart left by a colleague in a hurry, but when I looked around, no one was in sight. I shrugged it off at first. As the nights passed, I started seeing something out of the corner of my eye. It was always quick, nothing more than a flicker of shadows. I tried telling myself it was exhaustion. I wasn't sleeping much with my job and kids. One night, I heard a monitor beep in a patient's room. I rushed over, but everything was quiet. No patient. It felt strange. Then I found a patient who had passed away in that room. I swear I watched the monitors as they flatlined, yet I could hear whispers, soft and sad. My heart started racing. I thought I imagined it, but who could forget the sound of a life slipping away? I felt cold despite the warm room. Things took a turn on my last shift. I went to the break room for a moment of quiet. The hospital felt heavy, kind of like a storm cloud hanging over me. I wanted to shake off the unease in my chest. I sat down, and that's when I heard it. A voice calling my name. I stood up, feeling my heart pound against my chest. I glanced towards the hallway, and there it was again, that shadowy figure. I froze. I thought it might be a trick of the light, but it felt different this time. It was clearer. The figure seemed to be watching me. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I blinked, and the figure vanished. I'm not sure how to explain it. I went back to the station and tried to convince myself it was just fatigue. I thought maybe I was losing it. But maybe it wasn't just my mind playing tricks. I just don't know. I could hear those whispers again, soft and distant, echoing around me. Then I heard, "Help me." It wasn't clear if it was from my head or real. When I turned around, nobody was there. Now I'm left questioning everything. Was I just tired, or was there something more? I can still hear the whispers. They keep echoing in my mind. Every time I close my eyes, I see that figure. I can't shake the feeling that I missed something important. Those nights haunt me still, leaving me restless and afraid. The next shift was surreal. I arrived at the hospital feeling more anxious than before. The night cloaked everything in darkness, and I felt the shadows were heavier tonight. As I walked to the nurse's station, I reminded myself to stay focused. I had patients to care for, a job to do. Around midnight, I took my routine rounds. The first room felt different. The air was still, almost thick. I peered in, finding an empty bed, but the sheets were rumpled like someone had just been there. I hesitated, finding it odd. I thought back to my last night when I'd found a patient gone. There was something unsettling. After noting it down, I continued. As I walked down the corridor, the lights flickered. I paused, waiting for them to stabilize. That's when the whispers returned, louder this time. They seemed to swirl around me, urgent yet unintelligible. My heart raced again. I gripped the railing, feeling the cold metal against my palm. Then I saw it again. The shadow. It was out of the corner of my eye at first, but this time it moved. It weaved in and out of the light like a ghost, darting to the left, then right. My breath caught. I wanted to call out, but what could I say? I felt drawn to it, compelled to investigate. I followed it down the hallway, each step feeling wrong, like I was tiptoeing deeper into a nightmare. The whispers crescendoed, a symphony of sorrow. I turned the corner and stopped cold. The figure stood at the far end of the hallway, its shape clearer now but no less unsettling. It looked like a woman, her features lost in the dim light, her hair hanging over her face. "Help me," the voice repeated, clearer this time. I took a deep breath. I couldn't turn back now. Who are you?" I managed to stammer, my voice trembling. But the figure just tilted its head, as if waiting for me to move closer. I shook my head, trying to dispel the fear clawing at my chest. I took a cautious step forward, and with that step, the shadow vanished, just like every other time. I staggered back, my heart pounding. I leaned against the wall, feeling dizzy. What was happening? I was losing my grip on reality. I forced myself to breathe, to think. Then I felt it, the unmistakable chill of someone behind me. I whipped around, but the hallway was empty, save for the flickering lights. A chill ran through me. It wasn't just exhaustion anymore. There was something deliberate here, something I couldn't see. I turned back toward the nurse's station, my mind racing. I couldn't ignore the figure anymore. I had to find out who she was. I noticed an old report hanging on the wall, a notice about a patient reported missing a few nights ago. It was from this very floor. I decided to look into it. Whatever was happening, I needed to confront it before the shadows consumed me completely. That's when I grabbed the file and opened it. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't just miss something important. I had overlooked something shocking, and it only led to more questions. I stared at the name, my breath hitching in my throat. It was the same name I had seen on the patient roster during the last 2 shifts. A nurse named Lily Williams, age 28, vanished without a trace 3 nights ago. I had been in this building throughout, yet I never connected the dots. I felt a cold part of me panic. Why hadn't I noticed before? The night shift felt heavier now, pounding around my temples like a drum. Had Lily somehow been intertwined with the shadow? I could already sense the whispers starting again, curling around me like smoke. I hurried back to the nurse's station, clutching the file like a lifeline. My coworkers were mostly gone, only Sarah, a night shift veteran, remained. I approached her with urgency, hoping for clarity. "Sarah, do you remember Lily Williams?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her brow furrowed and she nodded. "Sure, she was a good nurse. Worked mostly in pediatrics." "Why?" "She's missing," I blurted out, the words spilling from my lips. "Did you ever see her before she disappeared?" "Not recently," Sarah replied, her tone flat. "Last I heard, she went home after her shift a few nights ago and never came back. Why do you ask? Is there something more?" I hesitated, biting my lip. How could I explain the shadows, the figure, without sounding insane? I needed her input, yet the unease in the air stifled any coherent response. I decided to just ask her. "Have you ever experienced anything strange at night? You know, something you couldn't explain?" Sarah's expression turned serious. "You mean, like noises or shadows?" "All the time," she said slowly. "But I don't think it's anything to worry about. Just the hospital's old vibes. Some patients carry heavy energy with them." With each word, the chill creeping down my spine intensified. I felt a dark current of fear, consuming my logic. I couldn't keep ignoring the pull of the unknown. "What if it's connected to Lily?" I pressed, desperation creeping into my voice. Sarah's eyes widened slightly. "Lily? She wasn't troubled, at least not that I knew of, but maybe she was too close to someone who was." That was it, a sense I didn't want to acknowledge. Something within the walls of this building had been disrupted, and Lily's energy hadn't been fully put to rest. As I turned back towards the hallway to gather my thoughts, a light flickered overhead. I looked up in time to see a brief shadow sail across the floor. Heart racing, I followed it. This time, it didn't disappear. I rounded the corner and found myself in front of room 204. I had never seen it before, yet it felt like I was being pulled toward it. The door was slightly ajar. I felt the chill wash over me once more intense than before. "Help me!" A soft voice floated through the crack, identical to the one I had heard earlier. Without thinking, I pushed the door open. The room was dim, the curtains drawn tight. My breath quickened as I stepped inside. Then everything went dark. I stumbled forward, my hands reaching out for support, but I found nothing. The darkness enveloped me, thick and suffocating. I held my breath, focusing on the sound of my heartbeat echoing in the silence. It felt like the room had swallowed me whole. Then, Like a candle flickering in a breeze, a dim light pierced the blackness. I squinted, trying to adjust my eyes. There, in the corner, I saw a figure, a shadowy outline that made my skin crawl. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. "Help me," the voice whispered again, softer this time. I could barely make out the shape of the person. It was a woman, her face obscured, but something about her felt familiar. Lily. "Lily?" I croaked, the name barely escaping my lips. The figure shook her head slowly, the movement almost imperceptible. "No. Not her. I can't—" Before she could finish, the light flickered again, and then vanished, plunging me back into darkness. Panic surged through me as I shuffled backward, desperate to escape whatever this was. The realization hit me. Whatever presence lingered here was not Lily. It was something else, something darker. I fumbled for the door, my heart racing as I pushed it open. The hallway glowed faintly, the fluorescent lights buzzing back to life as if I had flicked an unseen switch. I stepped out, my breaths frantic, and closed my eyes for a moment. I needed to think. The night shift continued, but my mind buzzed with confusion and fear. Had I really seen Lily? What was happening to me? I moved back toward the nurse's station, searching for Sarah, but she was gone. I felt abandoned, isolated. I grabbed the file again, flipping through the pages of incidents from previous nights. There had to be something about Lily that stood out. Nothing unusual jumped out, just routine notes about patients. Just as I was about to give up, I noticed a small annotation in the corner of a previous entry. Patient 221, inconsistent reports of visions, possible link to Nurse Lily. My stomach dropped. Was that the patient she had been too close to? My mind raced, and I glanced around the empty station. I didn't want to be alone anymore. The hospital felt like a maze, shadows crawling along the walls. The PA system crackled to life, the voice raspy and distorted. "We need help in room 221. That voice. It felt familiar yet terrifying. I needed to know if it connected back to Lily. Against my better judgment, I moved toward room 221, my pulse racing. I opened the door cautiously. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered, casting odd shapes across the walls. I stepped inside and froze. The room was empty aside from a single bed and various medical equipment. The air felt heavy. As I turned, I saw her reflection in the glass. Not my own, but Lily's. Her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. Then, everything went cold. Suddenly, I felt a presence creeping behind me. I turned to find myself face to face with a shadow that wasn't in the room before. Fear coursed through me, rooting me to the spot. "What do you want from me?" I gasped. The shadow lingered, its face indistinct, but its intentions clear. It was time to decide whether to uncover the truth or flee. I took a step forward. I wasn't ready for what happened next. As I took that step, the shadow seemed to ripple, like smoke in a breeze. It solidified into a curved shape, edging closer. Every instinct screamed for me to run, but something held me in place. Curiosity? Stupidity? Either way, I was trapped. "Where is she?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. The figure did not respond. Instead, it pointed toward the back corner of the room. I squinted, trying to focus. Behind the medical equipment, a small door led to a storage closet. Against my better judgment, I stepped toward it, each step feeling heavier than the last. My heart pounded in my chest. "Is she in there?" I whispered, not sure who I was even talking to anymore. The shadow nodded, its motion eerie and unsettling. I hesitated, glancing back at where I had last seen Lily's face. Where was she? What had I gotten myself into? I approached the door. It was locked. Panic nearly overwhelmed me even more than before. Then the shadow surged closer, a chill wrapping around my body like an icy hand. I nearly stumbled but caught myself just in time. "Help me!" I cried once more, half hoping it was the shadow that would respond. Its shape shifted, contorting into something more menacing. I could feel its presence pressing against me, a suffocating weight that pushed against my chest. "Please!" Suddenly, the door rattled violently as if someone was knocking from the inside. My breath caught in my throat. What was in there? Was it Lily? Or something worse? "Let me in," a voice emitted from within. It sounded like Lily but twisted, unnatural. I was torn, paralyzed between a desire to rescue her and a screaming instinct to flee. A loud crash echoed through the hallway. My head snapped back to the door, and without thinking, I threw my shoulder into it. The force jolted it open and the door swung wide. The room inside was darker than I expected. It smelled of damp wood and dust. Shadows danced in corners, but I could make out a figure slumped against the far wall. My breath caught again. It was Lily. She looked frail, almost translucent, wide eyes filled with terror. "Get out!" she screamed. "It's not safe." But before I could move, the shadows surged forward. "No!" I shouted, stumbling back. Everything began to swirl around me. Was I being pulled into darkness? A glance over my shoulder showed the shadow had changed. It had transformed into a mass of sinister tendrils reaching for me. My instincts took over as I bolted out of the room, pulling the door shut behind me. I stood panting in the hallway, trying to catch my breath. The PA system chirped again, startling me. "Attention all staff, we have a code red in room 221. My heart sank. I wasn't alone anymore, but the weight of dread pressed heavily on me. Whatever had just happened felt like the tip of an iceberg, and I was terrified to plunge deeper. One thing was clear. I had to find a way to help Lily and confront this darkness that surrounded her. As I took a step back to the nurse's station, I realized I wasn't prepared for what awaited me. I had just stumbled upon something far worse than I had imagined, and now I was sure the shadow wasn't done with me yet. I stood frozen in the hallway, my mind racing. The announcement from the PA echoed in my ears. Code red. What did that mean? Were there others in danger besides me? I took a deep breath and moved cautiously towards the nurse's station. My feet felt heavy, each step weighed down by dread and uncertainty. The staff was already responding to the code, rushing past me with urgency. They didn't notice me, and that felt both freeing and frightening. As I squeezed past them, I caught snippets of their conversations. Room 221. The patient is unstable. Secure all exits. My heart dropped. Was that Lily? What had happened in the time I spent with the shadow? I slipped into the empty break room next to the nurse's station. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting a sterile light that made everything feel surreal. I needed to think clearly. I couldn't let panic take over. I grasped the edge of the table, trying to steady myself. How could I help Lily if she was locked in that room, and what was that shadow? I remembered its presence, the tendrils reaching for me, and I had to figure out a way to confront it. Then everything went quiet. The bustling noise of the hospital faded away, leaving an oppressive silence. My breath felt too loud in my chest. I glanced back toward the door, and that's when I saw it. A shadow creeping along the edge of the wall. I froze. It was almost as if it was alive, moving with purpose. It slithered closer to me, and an overwhelming sense of dread washed over me. This was not the same shadow from before. This one felt more solid, more malicious. "Lily," I called out, my voice shaking. "Are you with me?" No response. The shadow coiled and twisted, then lunged forward, dashing towards me. I dove to the side, narrowly avoiding it. The moment it passed, I sprang up and raced out of the break room. I had to find Lily. I was determined to get to her before whatever that shadow was could snatch me again. I turned down the main corridor. The lights flickered as I ran, creating a strobe effect that made everything feel disorienting. Panic surged as I stumbled toward room 221, my mind cluttered with questions. What if Lily wasn't safe? What if she was the next victim? As I rounded the corner, I almost collided with a figure. It was a nurse, face pale and eyes wide. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice trembling. "You shouldn't be near this side of the hospital." "I need to get to room 2021. Lily is in there," I gasped. Her expression shifted, fear dancing in her eyes. "You don't understand. They said to keep everyone away." But before she could finish, the PA system blared again, sending a jolt of cold fear through me. All personnel to the East Wing, code black. Social isolation is in effect. I stood there, confused. What did that even mean? I glanced over my shoulder. The creeping shadow was gone, but I knew it was out there somewhere, lurking in the dark. I couldn't waste any more time. I took a deep breath and darted toward room 221. Whatever awaited me there, I had to face it. For Lily. For myself. I burst down the corridor, my heart pounding in my throat. I had to reach room 221. Lily needed me. As I approached, I noticed a heavy door at the end marked, "Restricted Access." My mind flickered with a thought. What if the shadow had something to do with this section of the hospital? I reached the door to room 221 and paused. I placed my hand against the cold metal, feeling the vibration of fear course through me. Taking a deep breath, I pushed it open and stepped inside. The light was dim, and the air felt thick. The usual beeping of monitors was replaced by an eerie silence. My eyes quickly scanned the room. Lily was in bed, pale and motionless, but she was still alive. Relief and dread battled inside me. "Lily!" I rushed to her side, grabbing her hand. Her skin felt cold and clammy, lacking warmth. "What happened? Are you okay?" Her eyes fluttered open slightly, but there was a distant look in them. She mumbled something I couldn't understand. Panic gripped my chest when I noticed the straps holding her down. "Why are you tied up?" I whispered, leaning closer. Then I heard it. A low whisper, like a breath stirring just behind me. I turned and my blood ran cold. The shadow I had seen before was now coalescing in the corner of the room, taking shape. It was darker than anything I had ever seen, its tendrils stretching out toward us. "Get away from her!" I shouted, stepping protectively in front of Lily. The shadow paused, as if considering me, but before it could move, the lights flickered and went out. I stumbled back, blinking against the sudden darkness. No, no, no! This wasn't happening. I fumbled for the wall, trying to find a switch or a window, something. Then, the lights returned, but everything felt different. Lily was sitting up now, hands free and looking at me with wide eyes. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, her voice sounding hollow. "What are you talking about?" I felt a mix of fear and confusion. My mind raced as I tried to process what was happening. "It's not safe. We weren't supposed to know," she whispered urgently. Before I could ask what she meant, the shadow lunged again. I screamed and pushed Lily behind me. "Lily, run!" I yelled, but she didn't move. It was as if she was entranced. Instinct kicked in. I dashed toward the door, but the shadow blocked my way. I was trapped. My chest tightened, and I felt the air grow colder. In that moment, I knew I had to take control. I couldn't let fear paralyze me. Then I remembered the emergency signal on the wall. I sprinted toward it, slamming my hand down. Alarms blared, echoing through the room. The shadow recoiled, trembling as if it were being pushed back. It was then I noticed something resembling a form emerging from the darkness behind it. "Help!" I screamed, but the voice that answered wasn't human. It sounded like a torrent of whispers, words I couldn't understand. I glanced back at Lily, who was still standing frozen. "We have to go now," I yelled. The lights flickered again, creating disorienting flashes that made it hard to see. "If they find out," Lily began, but I cut her off. "We don't have time for this." Just as I turned to grab her, the shadow lunged again and we were engulfed in darkness once more. I could feel it pressing down on me as panic threatened to overwhelm. When the lights came back, Lily was gone. The room was empty. I looked around, breathing heavily. Where had she gone? The voice returned, a haunting echo in the shadows. "Now you know too much." I stumbled back as the realization hit me. This was just the beginning. What did I just unleash? Before I could think, the room went dark again. The darkness felt oppressive, as if it had weight. I stood frozen, unsure of where to go or what to do next. Panic clawed at my throat and I forced myself to breathe. I reached for the wall to steady myself, trying to ignore the distant whispers that echoed in my mind. "Lily?" I called out, my voice trembling. No answer. I turned toward the door, but the shadow was still there, lurking just outside my vision. I needed to get out of this room. With each step toward the door, the sounds grew louder, like a swarm of bees buzzing. I finally reached the doorknob and pushed it, but it wouldn't budge. It felt like a thick fog had settled into my bones. I turned to check the windows, but they were sealed tight. I was trapped. Desperation surged. "Please, let me out!" I yelled, banging against the door. It echoed in the eerie silence. No one came. The only thing that answered was the shadow, creeping closer. I felt the cold brush of it against the back of my neck. Then, I remembered the commotion outside. Shadows danced under the sliver of light seeping from beneath the door. Were those footsteps? I rushed back to the window, lowering myself to look out. I nearly shouted when I saw a figure standing at the end of the corridor. It was a nurse, but not one I recognized. Her uniform was stained, and her face was obscured by dark hair that hung over her eyes. I could see her mouth moving, but no sound carried through. Panic surged again. Was she real? Or part of this nightmare? "Help!" I yelled, pressing my face against the glass. She stopped and tilted her head. I felt as if she were studying me, judging me. Then, she raised a finger to her lips, shushing me. "Don't make a sound," she mouthed, her eyes piercing me. Before I could respond, the lights flickered again, and she vanished into the darkness, leaving me alone. The whispers returned, louder this time, swirling around me like a storm. "You shouldn't be here," they echoed. I stumbled back from the window, my heart racing. I needed to find Lily. If that nurse was warning me, things were far worse than I'd imagined. The shadow hung just at the edge of my vision, almost waiting. Whatever it wanted, I knew I had to confront it. Suddenly the door swung open, slamming against the wall. I froze, not ready for another encounter. A figure stepped in, illuminated by the hospital lights. It was Dr. Evans, the head physician. His expression was grim. "Why are you here?" he snapped, his voice low and urgent. "You shouldn't have come in." "What happened to Lily?" I demanded, searching his face for answers. "They don't want you involved. You need to leave now." The tension in the room thickened. "But she's in danger, what do you mean? Just go. You can't know what they're planning." His eyes darted to the dark corners of the room, filled with dread. "Who? What are you talking about?" Before I could insist, he grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the door. A growl resonated around us, almost a warning. The shadow shifted closer. "What are you doing?" I shouted, trying to shake free. Dr. Evans hesitated just long enough for me to see the fear in his eyes. "You shouldn't have unleashed this. Leave before it's too late." Then he pulled me into the hallway, and for a moment I thought I saw Lily's figure in the distance, but the lights flickered again and she vanished. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Whatever was happening here was spiraling out of control. The voice in the shadow returned. "You've made your choice." And just like that, everything went black. When the darkness faded, I found myself pressed against the cold tiles of the hallway floor. My heart pounded as I blinked, trying to piece together what had just happened. I could still feel the lingering chill from the shadow that had enveloped me moments before. The air felt heavy, laden with an all-too-familiar sense of dread. Dr. Evans was gone. He had vanished as quickly and mysteriously as the nurse. I pushed myself to my feet and scanned the dimly lit corridor. Shadows flickered and danced along the walls, retreating like they were alive. I had to find Lily. I took a tentative step forward, listening for any sign of her. "Lily!" I called out again, my voice hoarse and filled with urgency. But no response came. I felt the weight of silence pressing around me, thick and suffocating. The hallway stretched ahead like a labyrinth, endless and twisting. I decided to head toward the nurse's station, hoping someone might be there. As I moved, the whispers echoed more aggressively in my ears. "Leave, leave," they chanted, a taunting refrain. With each step, dread swelled inside me. Something was very wrong in this hospital. Shadows seemed to leer at me from every corner, and the flickering lights created an illusion of movement, making me feel like I was being watched. I quickened my pace, adrenaline pushing me on. I reached the nurse's station, but it was deserted. Papers were strewn about and the monitors flickered erratically. The silence was so profound that I could hear my own breathing. "Where is everyone?" I whispered to myself. A sinking feeling told me they might not be coming back. Then I spotted a door at the far end of the station, slightly ajar. Light seeped out from the crack. My instincts screamed at me to run, to get out as far as possible, but another part urged me to investigate. What if Lily was inside? I approached the door cautiously and pushed it open. The room was dark, the only illumination from a small lamp fighting against the shadows that clung to the corners. The air felt thicker, charged with an energy I couldn't explain. And then I saw it. A figure sat in the corner, shrouded in shadow. "Who's there?" I called, my voice trembling again. The figure turned, and it was a woman. Her face was pale and gaunt, eyes wide, staring straight at me with a mixture of fear and urgency. "You shouldn't have come here. You're in danger," she said in a tremulous voice that was barely above a whisper. "Have you seen Lily?" I asked, desperation creeping into my tone. She shook her head slowly, dread pooling in her eyes. "No one can help her now. It's too late." As she spoke, the door behind me slammed shut with a deafening bang. My stomach dropped. I spun around, pressing against the door, but it wouldn't budge. I felt as if I was choking, trapped in an unseen grasp. The whispers rose again, swirling around me like a storm. "You shouldn't have come. You've awakened something." Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, and the dark corners seemed to seep inside the room as if they were coming to life. I turned back to the woman, but she was gone. Panic surged through me as I struggled against the door. That's when I saw it. A dark shape emerging from the depths of the room. It was not just a shadow. It had form, and it was moving towards me. I felt paralyzed, too terrified to run. In that moment, everything went dark again. But this time, I knew I was not alone. When the light returned, I found myself in the break room again, the familiar walls closing in like a prison. But the atmosphere had shifted. It was no longer just eerie. It felt charged with intensity. Fear coiled tightly in my stomach. I had to keep moving. I could not let the shadow catch me again. "Lily," I whispered, stepping out of the break room with a renewed sense of purpose. I headed for the nearest exit, the call of the unknown pushing me forward. The fluorescent lights flickered as I navigated the winding corridors, a melody of whispers echoing through my mind, merging into a cacophony of uncertainty and dread. But as I approached the exit, the feeling hit me. Someone was watching, lurking in the shadows. I stopped dead in my tracks, scanning the dim light. Was the shadow there again? Then I saw it. A figure in white, half hidden in the hallway. "Help me," it whispered in that same voice. My heart raced, terror gripping me. It looked like Lily, but something was wrong. There was a chill in her eyes, and behind her stood the shadowy form, pulsating as if it were breathing. "Lily!" I called out, but doubt gnawed at me. The figure shifted closer, her lips moving, yet no words escaped. I took a step back. "What do you want?" The shadow writhed as if in response, tendrils reaching out toward me. I took another step back, dread clawing at my chest. I felt trapped, surrounded by an invisible force threatening to pull me under again. "Leave! Now!" Lily's voice echoed in my mind, but she didn't look like Lily anymore, just a ghostly reflection of whatever she had once been. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but the shadow seemed to anticipate my movements, shifting at the edge of my vision. "Help me," the figure pleaded again, and I felt a pull toward her. "Lily, I'm here to help you," I replied, desperation lacing my voice. I approached, the distance between us closing. "What is it? What do you need me to do?" Suddenly the shadow surged forward, its form expanding with a darkness that seemed to engulf the very air around us. I felt the world around me flicker again, light and shadow warring against each other. I stood frozen, heart thundering as tendrils brushed against my arms, cool and paralyzing. The whispers spiraled into a frenzy, each word almost breaking into a scream. "You awakened it. You must face the truth." The figure, Lily, was pulled into the shadow's form, her face twisted between pain and despair. "You have to choose." The shadows trembled, their weight pressing down on me. In that moment, A realization struck me. I couldn't fight it. Something deep within me knew the shadows were manifestations of grief, pain, maybe even lost memories bound to this place. I had to embrace the truth, confront whatever reality I had tapped into. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, forcing myself into the center of the darkness. "I'm here," I shouted, voice steady though my heart raced. "I want to help. Tell me what to do." The shadows recoiled as if shocked. The buzzing whispers dimmed, and for a moment, an eerie silence fell over me. It was then that I felt it, a warm light piercing the dark, illuminating Lily's shape, guiding me through the shadows that had enveloped her. "Find me," she whispered, words laced with anguish yet filled with hope. And in her gaze I felt a flicker of recognition. It was both a plea and a promise. The darkness surged again, but this time I reached for it. I wanted to pull Lily back. "I won't let you go. I'm still here," I cried out. The temperature shifted, and then, with an unyielding determination, I plunged into the shadow. For a moment, everything blurred, sounds fading until there was only stillness. And just as suddenly, I was standing outside, fresh air enveloping me shoulder to shoulder with ethereal darkness behind me. The hospital loomed in shadows, its corridors no longer familiar, but fraught with the weight of unasked questions. "I don't know what comes next," I whispered to the wind, looking back toward the building. I didn't know what awaited Lily, or whether I had saved her, or released something worse. I turned and walked away, feeling the whispers fade into the distance but knowing they'd never fully leave me. I know I'd continue questioning the echoes of what transpired. What haunted the halls might have been born from the darkest parts of human experience, but it left me with a glimmer of understanding that I couldn't quite grasp. Wherever she was, Lily was not lost entirely. Maybe one day I'd find a way back to understanding what happened that night. But for now, all I could do was keep moving forward into the unknown, leaving the specter of that painful truth suspended in the shadows of my memory.